What is up, fellow Kryptonians? Welcome to my Superman and Lois episode 8 breakdown, review, recap, and just everything, because this episode, titled Holding the Wrench, was probably one of my favorites. There was so much greatness about this episode, and if I hear one more complaint about Bitsy Tulloch or Elizabeth Tulloch or Tulloch, sorry, I always screw that up, Tulloch. How can you doubt her playing Lois Lane? Like, fair enough, subjectivity, I guess. Maybe you thought someone else would be better in mind, but this episode, she really shone more than ever. I think she's an incredible actress. She personifies the tenacity of Lois, the family-driven aspect of Lois, just everything Lois. And this episode showcased that in a multitude of ways. I am so happy and grateful for this cast in so many ways, and then this episode really highlighted that. For example, there was great moments with Jonathan, obviously because how that pertained to Lois. We had great moments for Jordan, and overall we got deeper into the story, and this was quite a sentimental episode. I'm going to stop premising this and just get right into it. So go ahead and like this video if you do go on to enjoy it. Massive shout out to the patrons and channel members appearing on screen. Thank you for helping me do what I do on this channel. Just every little bit really does help, and just thank you. And if you aren't one of those channel members, just a like on the video will really help me out. And other than that, I just want to hear your thoughts on this episode, because I feel like this one had arguably some of the best performances in it. So this episode started right off at the beginning, and you could kind of tell it was one of those things. I thought maybe it was meant to be right at the end of the episode, but the therapy / counseling that Lois was going through was obviously signifying something that happens, and I was waiting for it to happen. Initially I thought, oh man, is this gonna be about Clark? But I was like, no, Lois and Clark can pull through a lot, so it turned out to be Jonathan. And I really liked this kind of extra attention they gave to Lois in this episode, because maybe Clark, I think Lois just needed to escape the family setting this episode, because we had lines like, you know, maybe I'm not who you need right now, even from Clark himself, after that massive confrontation scene happened in the episode. So that's where she spoke to this therapist, I guess you would call her. And as I said, like, I'm gonna say this a lot, but, you know, obviously it started off a bit, you know, calm, but the emotions really came out throughout the counseling, so and many other scenes throughout this episode. But right off the bat, you're wondering, okay, what is going to happen? What is this all about? And as I said, I'm going to echo this quite a lot throughout the review, but Elizabeth Tulloch, I'm so happy that she is Lois Lane in this show. I'm probably going to be fanboying. And if you can't see it, then I don't know how you can't see it. It's just... man, I'm just so grateful for this show, and I don't want to retread the same old beaten path that I guess gets brought up, not only by me, but by you guys in the comment sections. It's just mind-blowing, the quality of this show compared to what normally airs before this, The Flash, because that was on break this week and is returning next week. But do you see what I mean? My God. But as for the actual start of the episode, in terms of what we were seeing in the real time with the Kent family, we had a bit of debriefing from them after the events of last episode, with the mystery guy trying to kill your dad. The three of them are taking a break from football for a while, so I guess that kind of subplot of Jordan and the football stuff might be benched for quite a while, if not indefinitely, maybe. And I didn't talk about something that a lot of you are speaking about with regards to Jonathan lifting the hammer. Now, I do want to address that here quickly, because, as I said, when I was watching I didn't actually think about what you guys thought, so fair enough there, because I do believe, and some people are on two sides of the fence with this, when Jonathan put his hands in front of Jordan when he broke his hand, there was definitely a little ripple bubble effect that happened on the screen that I believe is signifying that Jonathan only managed to do that through some kind of inherent, maybe molecular change, just like similar what happened to Jordan, unlocking his Kryptonian ability. So something that I didn't actually pick up on was him dragging the hammer. Now, this isn't a breakdown of last episode, so I will address this very quickly. I didn't think that necessarily, just because, obviously, yeah, I understand his hand is broken, but he was kind of dragging it. It's not like he could lift it up very easily. Now, I can't accurately remember, or I don't know if they even stated this, that the hammer could only be kind of like Mjolnir. Like, can John Henry Irons only wield that with his gauntlet? Or can you obviously kind of pick it up very slowly like that like Jonathan did? I mean, I definitely can see how you can look into, oh, like maybe that's his Kryptonian strength slightly burning through in an act of pure will and emotion, which is usually a way of how it can come out for both Jordan and maybe Jonathan, like we've seen before in prior episodes. But I'd love to know more of your takes on that. Do you really think that when he smashed the solar flare kind of lights to help his dad on the truck at the end of last week's episode was him lifting the hammer with his strength? I took it more, believe it or not, I took it more of just like he was dragging it and he struggled with it. But I definitely can see how maybe people can attribute this to just like the punch, how he probably did that, and it's little teasers for Jonathan also getting his powers. But it's interesting to see the audience's comments on this, on my videos and just in general, because they are definitely kind of playing with Jonathan's powers, but it's no way near as abundantly obvious, and they're doing this quite cleverly, because obviously the Jordan powers that are surfacing are very obvious. But the ones with Jonathan, it's like, you could argue both ways of how it may or may not be an inherent molecular mutation that happened in that moment. Now, speaking of Jonathan, right at the bit where they're kind of helping fix the truck, Clark is using his strength to bend the kind of hood back into shape. I felt sorry for Jonathan again, because he felt like he wasn't much help fixing the truck, and he was like, maybe I can help you, Mum. And it's kind of true. Like, he was just standing there with the wrench. He had that look in his eyes, just like, okay, yeah, another dad and something. I really do feel like, and the actor's name is Jordan. This is where it gets a bit confusing. The guy who plays Jonathan is called Jordan. He is such a good character on the show. I really like Jordan as well, especially how far he's come. It's not as, you know, what some people say is quote-unquote whiny, even though there was context for that. I still really enjoy both characters. But Jonathan, at the minute, is such a highlight for me. I think that's because, you know, they're making the audience and they're writing him in such a way where you do sympathize a lot for Jordan as well, but Jonathan has been dragged through the mud. He's not got the powers, and he is his mother's son as well, which is this is obviously what this episode is kind of all about, and the relationship between Lois and Jonathan, and that, especially that final moment in this episode, was really touching, and how, you know, she knows what it feels like to be in a superpowered family, and you're just the guy holding the wrench, you know? Even though I think we all like to think he's gonna get powers eventually, like proper full-on, you know, Superboy Jonathan Kent style, but yeah. What a fantastic episode for, you know, Lois and Jonathan there. So they have John's truck, which, you know, is lined with lead, and they go in there and we have Luthor's robot asking for the ID. Lois Lane's name and voice was obviously a match, and we all know why. And that's when they ask about John Henry Irons, and his bed flips into the kind of computer-style getup. And this is where, you know, I thought they were going to get a bit more into Crisis, but I suppose not. I don't actually blame them, because there are some weird effects still. Like, a lot of people like to mention Supergirl's Fortress of Solitude, and how we have this Fortress of Solitude which looks a billion times better. Like, Crisis and the CW's continuity, as much as some of it is airtight, there's just as much, if not more, that isn't airtight, and we try and tend to forget about that, especially with what I like to view as this new evolution and markup with Superman and Lois and Stargirl being the new premium shows, and the old shows kinda, at least in my opinion, well past their sell-by date. Do you know what I mean? So, like, this, just, at least in my mind, this is the new continuity in canon moving forward. Nothing else really matters. So, Jonathan learns about the multiverse through Lois saying parallel universes, each with its own Earth. And this is where things get really interesting, and it really hits home for Lois. And this was such a good way of, I think, you know, getting into her emotions and linking things to Natalie, and how there was a Natalie, or was going to be a Natalie on this Earth, and how that explores trauma. Like, there's so many layers to this episode, which I thought was such a cool thing to do. Even though I expect this show to be of a certain quality, because it has been, it keeps surprising me. I think because I have that inherent kind of, like, you know, apprehension about CW shows, even though Superman and Lois hasn't really let us down too much, if at all, so far. But it still keeps coming with punches, and that's really, really refreshing. Around this time, that's when the wedding photos started appearing, and later on we saw John looking at the computer screens in the RV himself, and you have that really sweet scene of him just saying, sorry, I didn't get to meet you, sis, you seemed really cool. And then we see John also looking at his mum getting lasered by Superman, which is obviously a very traumatic thing to see. That same news broadcast where Lois exposed to the world about Kryptonians and kryptonite. And that's when this scene happened, which was very, very cool, I thought. Like, it's very, very sketchy, and this is where he set off the alarms because he looked at the weapons cache and he had T-minus 20 seconds until he was eliminated. You know, you can get nitpicky here and say, like, oh, isn't that convenient that you sure, like, the robot was sending out a deploy order to kill to itself, but it gives 20 seconds to anyone who you know, what was trying to get out. Like, I'm not trying to be that guy. You could probably say comic book logic. They put that in there just in case there is a mistake. But do you know what I mean? Like, it is funny anyway. But, like, this was still a race against the clock because it's also very convenient that Lois was around about to hear Jonathan screaming. But, you know, when you chuck all that aside, it was still a very emotional scene. Lois uses the beacon and Clark barely gets there in time to repel the bullets from hitting Jonathan. And when I say barely made it in time, I mean you guys saw it. The bullets were just about to hit him. This could have gone so wrong, which is obviously the catalyst for a lot of kind of pent-up emotional trauma for Lois, especially after seeing Natalie on the screen as well, and now she's kind of projecting the fear of loss for Jonathan, saying, you know, obviously this is where the big argument happened. What more can I say than the performances from Elizabeth Tulloch and Jordan were just incredible. And when I say Jordan, I mean Jonathan, but you know what I mean. I like how it kind of exposed and projected the vulnerabilities of each character, but also, you know, Jonathan had a lot of points as well, because this has been an insecurity for a long time of his, like we spoke about time and time again, of how he's the only kind of dude in the family other than Lois, who you see Clark and Jordan going off being super strength, and he needs to defend himself. Like, he was 1 second away from dying, so he kind of wanted some weapon, especially now that the kids, as of the end of last episode, are aware of the New Age Kryptonians, Morgan Edge, the Stranger. You can't blame Jonathan, and if anything, I still keep feeling more and more sorry for him, especially in this moment, despite knowing where Lois is coming from. And even Clark was tiptoeing around it, being like, don't you think you're a little bit too harsh? And that is when Lois's claws were really out. You saw him really treading on eggshells in that moment. I'm not gonna blabber on about this moment anymore. The lines were fantastic. I like how it like really rooted into the therapy sessions that were intermittently woven throughout this episode, and it just makes the impact of the storytelling that much more bittersweet. But let's briefly surf over the Cushing stuff. So in this episode, we had the Cushing family, beginning with Lana talking about the new program, obviously finding people for the leadership thing, which is basically finding the best candidates, as we know, for Morgan Edge to turn into the New Age Kryptonians, as he puts it, achieving their best selves. But we also had Kyle, and this was this episode was bittersweet. We had some sweet, it's almost like sweet bitter, because we had sweet moments with Kyle wanting to help Sarah out with guitar for her performance. But then it kind of turned into a thing where he heard about the news regarding, from Leslie Law, which freaking Leslie Law, laser eyes lady, always meddling in something, that he was meant to get a job opportunity to be one of those candidates, and they hope that he reconsiders. So he finds out that his wife turned down the job opportunity, that he's wanted nothing more but this recognition from Morgan Edge. So yet again, I really do like Kyle's character. It's a very interesting angle of where he comes from, and I don't blame him for kind of relapsing into alcohol this episode. And obviously he is wanted to help this town so much, he's poured a lot of himself into that. Then to find out your wife has held you back from, obviously he's completely out of the know with any kind of actual substance to these Morgan Edge allegations. So even though he's aware of it, he's kind of in denial about it. He doesn't want to know about it. But obviously Lana is spying on behalf of Lois. So there's all of this context floating around. And yeah, it just made like for a nice father and daughter experience story this episode, revisiting some dark times that the family has had through him trying to blow off some steam, as he put it. And that just looks bad, very bad, to the kids and the families. So I know that was really me just skimming over a lot of what happened in this episode with regards to them, but that is really the substance of it. And it's just like, yeah, I wonder where things are gonna go. Like, are they really gonna make Kyle actually take on the opportunity behind Lana's bag? That would be pretty sad. I mean, are they gonna go as far as that happening? He gets powers and then Kyle might die by the end of the season? That would be horrible. I wouldn't put it past them. I know that obviously lacks a lot of context and development from my suggestion there, but you could almost see it going that way. Almost. And then obviously on the other half of things, due to that, we had Sarah get help from Jordan, who was being very supportive as usual, bringing flowers, the sweet lad. And yeah, like that was nice. A little singing in the episode. Normally I wouldn't be too down for that, but it was so casually done that I don't feel any type of cheese, if you will, when it comes to, you know, network TV and singing that I normally do. I just wanted to put that out there. Normally I do, but like this is so like carefully done, it just doesn't ever bleep on my radar of cheesiness like that. But moving onwards, we have John Henry Irons in his cell. I'm obviously trying to do things chronologically for each story beat at a time. Technically, this happened much earlier on from what we're talking about. And we get some more flashbacks. In that flashback, we saw the black suit Superman really trying to break into the cockpit as he was escaping, I guess, his Earth. Now, we didn't, it's kind of strange. We didn't get like such a open wide shot of space of Superman. It's kind of interesting as well. Like, they're flying away from his Earth. I'm guessing the antimatter wave is hitting it. Like, this is the context we don't have. And I'm still guessing we are getting a lot more context, because as much as we are getting more context from these flashbacks, there's still lots left behind. So, what we could gather, flying away, Black Suit Superman didn't want to let this guy get away, and then it just cuts it off. I thought maybe you would have seen the antimatter wave, but I sort of questions like, well, how did you escape into the other universe? Was Lex Luthor's ship capable of multiverse travel? I mean, I guess that's possible, especially with what we've seen in the Arrowverse before. But yeah, I want a lot more answers there, but you know, I'm being patient. I'm fine. Like, we've still got quite a few episodes left, so I'm sure we're going to get into things that we still don't know, like why is this Superman going to go bad if just because your Superman went bad, which is another thing I want to visit this episode, because it's like they leaned into it, but it was kind of turning out how I was kind of worried about, in a way. What I mean by that is, you know, so we had that conversation with Superman, you know, he was talking about his past, 2 tours in Afghanistan. Problem is he died 6 years ago under mysterious circumstances. And, you know, that's when the dialogue continued with John saying, all you need to know is I'm the one who's going to end you. And it was that back and forth, because you think I'm going to turn on humanity. And then obviously we have John just being like, because you're a traitor, Kal-El, or soulless monster. But it's just like, the only worries and problem I have with the storyline is just because your Earth did it doesn't mean this Earth Superman will do it. I understand the context of the events happening in the same sequence, which makes it a lot better for me. I like how Clark himself checked this in on a phone call with Lois, saying, well, I don't know, Lois. Look at the articles. This guy was just like me right up until he started killing innocent people. And obviously Lois says, you know, Clark, it doesn't matter. That's not you. And I agree, because it's just like, okay, but what is the one thing that made that Clark do it? Is it really just because Morgan Edge on his Earth implanted Kryptonian sentience into humans that he was like, oh, I'm going to be loyal to them? Is it really that basic? Because if it is, I still don't believe another Earth Superman, despite, because a lot of people are saying, despite, yeah, but he wasn't with Lois on that Earth. I know Lois and Superman, and in many stories, that is almost a split of a thing that can happen. Like in Justice, this, that, and the other, he can go evil. But this Superman was good, having not even been with Lois. So all I'm saying is, I hope as this gets explored, as hopefully we get more context into the other Earths, Black Suit Superman, who obviously started destroying Metropolis when the other Morgan Edge sentience implanted into humans, Kryptonians, started emerging, that we get a good clarification as to why that Kal-El chose allegiance to actually even to the point of where he destroyed human lives after previously saving them. That just seems way too basic to me. I'm not being harsh here at all. I'm really, really relying on a better excuse than just, oh, Kryptonians came back, so I'm loyal to them now, even though I just saved a bunch of humans, and there's loads of articles and records and evidence that document me being a hero on that Earth. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to ramble about this too much more. I trust that you guys understand where I'm coming from there. But other than that, I still really enjoyed that interrogation room scene between John and Clark. It's like, you have no idea how much I care about these people. And, you know, the motivations, I guess from a guy who's been through a lot of trauma in his defense and stuff, if all the dominoes are lining up and then they have already, through as he articulates here, what happened on my world is already happening on this one, and the Kryptonians are here, and you joining him is the last domino to fall before it all goes down, then yeah, fair enough. I kind of understand where John's coming from, but it's still missing that one final pizza piece to complete the pie, if you know what I mean. Once again, the therapy scenes continue around this part, and I just want to obviously completely praise it, because as it kept getting deeper and deeper throughout the episode, the more traumatic stuff started getting mentioned. So we had Lois saying how she blames herself for that miscarriage, and obviously we had the therapist saying, but the majority of miscarriages are caused by a genetic thing, and Lois blames herself because she never stopped working. And this is where kind of the moral and motto of the episode and message even comes through it with what the therapist says here: was something that happened to you, not something that you did. And when things happen to you, you kind of need to learn to accept them. It's not your fault. And when she just said, I was so excited to meet her, it's just, you know, obviously all the dots come into one from when she saw Natalie on the screen in the RV earlier on in the episode. It's just like, man, that really is gutting. And all I'm gonna say is, just imagine if there's some other actress who isn't as good, like, would that have nearly had the same? I know that's what acting is, but it's just important to highlight how good this moment was from her, Elizabeth Tulloch, because if it was somebody else, would that have nearly had the same impact on many of you who I'm trusting had a similar reaction to me? There were multiple times in this episode where I really, it pulled the heartstrings and made me tear up quite a bit. As things unfold throughout the episode with regards to the interrogation of John Henry Irons, we had General Lane obviously getting involved, and I was really looking forward to seeing what would happen in this episode. And to my surprise, I thought they were going to lean a lot more, and this could still technically happen, but it doesn't seem like it. I thought they were going to almost obviously lean into, oh, General Lane, he's already started the contingency, so is he gonna lean even more into what John Henry Irons says about his service and rebellion against the Dark Superman on his Earth? So, but they didn't. They kind of didn't. It kind of continued with General Lane wanting to change tactics into torture to get some answers. Obviously, Superman was very much so disagreeing with that. Yeah, again, this scene kind of heavily emphasized, yeah, but what if there's a dozen Kryptonians and he decided to be loyal to them? And in this moment, he's very, and I love the conviction in General Lane. I know he's apprehensive, but it's almost like it kind of reassures you about General Lane, because he's like, he won't turn. He's got this optimism in Clark, but then again, if you know General Lane, he's still kind of done the contingency. As he said to Clark later on, towards one of the ending scenes in this episode, he's got a lot of trust to build up to him again and to make up for, but he kind of, you know what, prepares for the worst, but kind of hopes for the best, even when it comes to him. And to be honest, like, you know, I get the moral, you know, questions to this, but like when it comes to actual legitimate preparations, if you will, you can't fault General Lane for, like, you know, having a backup plan, because I know they're like almost putting Superman against the idea of this through what we've seen in this series, but I feel like Superman would basically agree with that. Just like how Kara, even in Elseworlds, not Elseworlds, was it Elseworlds Crisis? I can't remember. She let Ruby Rose's Batwoman keep the kryptonite, because you never know. You never know. Even though Ruby Rose went to destroy that, but that's when she left the show, and that's a whole other thing. But once again, we still don't have the actual answer, because other than him saying they are his people, he would choose his kind over mankind, and what chance would you have? It's like, but that doesn't mean our Clark will. So what was it that made the black suit super? Was it really just them coming about and being like, okay, screw you Earthlings, I'm gonna go? That's not good enough for me. And I don't believe the lack of Lois in his life and that Earth. As I know I'm repeating myself, but it's important to reiterate this. He was already saving people without Lois. An alternate Superman without the family, and you're already saving people. If Kryptonians started coming back thanks to Morgan Edge implanting them into heads of other people, that you're just gonna all of a sudden cause mass murder. That's like a Game of Thrones level of acceleration into villainy, or like Daenerys Targaryen. Do you know what I mean? It's too quick, way too quick to just be like, okay, evil. Bye. Do you know what I mean? Like, even for another Earth Superman. That's the only issue I have with that, but not quite yet, because we still quite don't know everything. So this is where things get to like the climax, if you want to say that, with just the action of stuff happening. So we had obviously John Henry Irons being transported to another area. Screw that other, I mean, I don't know if this is so realistic. Like, I know one of the soldiers was obviously a New Age Kryptonian, and we'll get into that in just a second, because obviously that pertains to this whole climax and fight of the episode. But the other soldier, like, really? I mean, I don't know, I guess, but would you really, in the Department of Defense, be like, yeah, I'm taking this other prisoner, I don't care what you think, against General Lane's orders, and I'm gonna torture him? Try and get away with that in the walls of the Department of Defense. Yeah, I don't know anyone would do that. This part was really cool because we actually got to see the Sector 5 contingency area, which holds a stockpile of kryptonite, as General Lane articulates. It's an R&D lab. It's got fragment grenades, bladed weapons, aerosol sprays, biochemical gas. There's a chance that if he goes down there, he will not come back. And one thing I did like, you know, when you're seeing the fight, there's quite a few BVS almost references to this episode, with Clark getting dosed with all the kryptonite gas. He was still quite strong, and you could argue, why wasn't he almost like completely reduced to human strength with that? I did like how you could almost put into the fact that General Lane said it was synthetic kryptonite, so it doesn't necessarily mean it would have as such of a strong effect as what the actual kryptonite has. So do you know what I mean? I just appreciate little details like that. I don't know if that was absolutely intentional, but I did notice, and I didn't mind it, because in different iterations of Superman, you don't have to be the exact, and this has been shown before, kryptonite doesn't always have the exact same effect on every movie and TV or whatever show we've seen when it's been portrayed. So with this one, I was like, okay, you know, evaluating it as the fight was unfolding. It was a pretty cool fight. But as soon as they said, oh, you know, it's synthetic, it's like, okay, well, that's my reason already as to why it didn't completely reduce him to nothing. And he still did have a little bit of strength in him. As Superman goes down there, we see the 7734, which is the same number as on the dog tags, which if you look at it, it says hell, you know, which goes back to the whole Other Earth rebellion against the Kryptonians. Yet again, BVS kind of moments. We have John take the spear eventually after the other guy gets kind of, you know, impaled by John with the spear. It's almost like that BVS moment when Ben Affleck's Batman takes a spear and he says, you know, out of all the weapons in my world, we had our own 7734. And out of all of the weapons I used to kill Kryptonians, this was my favorite. And this all got up to the point where it's just about to impale him, but everybody rushes in. Lois obviously appeals to John. And, you know, as much as I really love this moment, because it was really important, especially with Lois relating to him with what happened on his world, with how his family and everything was taken from him, and how it's not his fault, especially for all the efforts he went through to try and stop it. Lois can really relate to, obviously, how it's the whole message, right? Things that happen to you aren't necessarily your fault, but you need to accept that they still happened, you know? And this also doesn't mean it's Clark's fault, but this is kind of the thing that I felt like, as much as it led up to this, without that extra context, it's what I've been echoing throughout this review. So John changes his mind because he realizes something that I felt like was obvious the whole time. I know I want to chuck in the context of how what's happened to him would motivate him. I'm not ignoring that. But it still is, yes, just because it happened on your Earth doesn't mean it happens on ours. So then he dropped the spear. I know, obviously, Lois had a big thing to do with that, but it's still like, okay, well, that should kind of be obvious in the first place. And nothing's really changed, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, he's back at the Kent farm, he drives off for a bit. I think he's going to come back and hopefully be Steel. That would be really cool. I'm not saying he's going to get a full-blown suit. I mean, he already kind of has with the hammer, and obviously he might help. This is where I'm speculating it will go. Obviously now it's not so much about the Captain Luthor mystery or the John Henry Irons still going after Superman. It's kind of going into, you know, oh crap, we've got a war coming with New Age Kryptonians. Clark isn't going to go evil like his Earth Superman did, so he's going to fight them and he'll need Steel's help. That's not been proper laid down right now, but it's obviously where it's probably going to go. But yeah, as I say, like, you know, what I'm left wondering with this, other than, you know, thinking it was really cool and amazing performances and stuff, is like, oh, if only you just realized that he wasn't like your Superman in the first place kind of thing. So I'm desperate to find out and maybe get a scene in the future episode of the black suit Superman on his Earth and the actual turning point that made him go evil. And I'm really interested to see where this goes. Are we even going to get a moment? Do you think we're going to get a moment where that happens and we're going to get a moment where Clark almost like paralleling John Henry Irons' Earth has that moment where he could go evil and they could tease it, but obviously he remains our Superman? There's lots of things that could still come, which is why I'm not casting full judgment just yet on the things that I have a little teeny bit of concern about. So, you know, Lois and everyone, even Superman flies down, that everyone kind of reconciles, and as I said, I think this is going to lead to him returning in a surprise moment. The camera does a quick zoom in to a headshot moment where he's Steel, and it's like, I'm here to help. I know that sounds cheesy, but I think it will go something like that. Obviously a lot more tasteful than what I just mentioned. They insinuate this even more through dialogue, like if there really is a war coming, we'll need all the help we can get. And it was like a wholesome ending where how he reprogrammed the AI of Lex Luthor's to not be regarding him as Luthor anymore, but for a new profile, John Henry Irons. So he really is, I guess this is kind of the starting point, truly, for his new persona. I mean, that is his normal name, but like what I'm trying to say is character transformation into Steel that we will hopefully see moving forward. So overall, guys, absolutely fantastic episode. It's got me asking some things which I'm not mega sure about, but I'm not remotely critical about right now because there's still quite a few episodes left which, you know, really do have the opportunity to flesh out some of the things even more. I think what does it for me is the performances and the story and a lot of the, I guess, character development moments for the family were just truly spectacular, and we can't ever forget that is what this show is about. It's Superman and Lois / family. This is about the super family, and the premise of the show before it ever came out, we were going over, and it is about how Lois and Clark deal with doing their stuff in the real world, but also deal with two kids, and two interesting kids at that, obviously, with the powers that are low-key emerging over time, more for one than the other, but you know what I mean by that. And I think they are fulfilling that to a T. They're doing exactly what this show set out to do, and I can't argue that at all. I'm just so happy it exists because, you know, once upon a time, I think we all thought CW shows, you know, they're all going downhill, which they have. I don't count Stargirl on that because that was a DC Universe show. It's now CW, but the reason why that's got such different directing, cinematography, episode length, this, that, and the other is because it wasn't a CW show. And now Superman and Lois, though, is the first CW show that has actually evolved. And I can wholeheartedly say that with utmost confidence. And I think it's evident as well. It speaks for itself. So I loved it, guys. So looking forward to next week's episode. I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you made it this far, you know what I'm going to do. If you've been around here long enough, I would love you to prove it. If you're going to post a comment, with whatever comment you're going to post, type down in the comment section below, #7734, and you're definitely one of the real ones, and I'll heart every single comment that does that. Like the video, as I said, check out the top pinned comments, which is my comment, where you can find links to support me on Patreon, or even just follow me on Twitter and things like that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.